Paige. You're sitting there going, what is going on here? BackChat podcast, powered by Fleet Network for season 2023. We're in Sydney, and we're very happy and privileged to be joined by netball superstar, Paige Hadley. How are you, Paige?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for
Anytime.
making your way over. Inner city Sydney, we got planes flying over, so it's cold this morning. We appreciate you coming in. Now, you've got some finals to play in the next couple of weeks, so we wish you luck for that. But we're going to go through your journey as a player, sports person, get through all the good stuff. But before we do that, we ask the first question. It's the same to every guest we ask, right? We have on here at BackChat. Now, we know you're a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. We know you're a world champion. We know you've played for your country. We know you're a premiership player. We know you're captain of your club. We know all that, okay? We know all those things, right? Just to start, we just want to say we don't care just for the moment. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the netball court. So you've done a lot of great things in netball. We understand that. We do, and we love it. But we want to know your greatest sporting achievement, not on the netball court. Now, a bit of an update. Dan Const, my co-host Dan, he took 5 for 16 and under 12s cricket match.
Yeah,
And
in a grand final.
And we take the trophy everywhere. I've had it for 2 years, and it broke on the way over here. The ball has come out of the trophy. I don't know where it is.
The wood's broken on it. The ball from the game is in the trophy, and that's come out. I've had it for 20 years, and it's finally broken.
So that's Dan's. I was a state under-9 hurdling champion before my football efforts. Have you got something that wasn't on the netball field that you can share with us?
Well, I do have quite large feet, and so I was a good swimmer.
That's good.
Nice.
And so growing up, I was like the CHS champion of swimming. And the only reason I probably stopped swimming was because my dad hated sitting in a chlorinated pool. So I chose netball because my mum took me instead of my dad.
Wow. So what's the CHS champion? What's that?
So we have in Sydney, it's like the combined high schools.
Right.
So I went.
So you're a gun.
Yeah. So I went through, and then I was quite a good swimmer. And then Dad said, can't do these early mornings or late afternoons, so let's go netball.
That's unreal. We like that. That's quite good.
Freestyle?
Yeah, freestyle and backstroke were my 2 strokes that I was not bad at. Butterfly, I didn't have the range of the butterfly. Yeah.
I can't imagine you've ever been able to do butterfly down.
It's just it's just flailing in the water, looking like I'm drowning most of the time. Like when I swim in general.
That's great, Paige. Very good. So you speak about your dad and your parents. You usually have a lot to do with sports people when they're growing up. What was your childhood like? Were you sporty?
Yeah, absolutely. Dad used to take my brother to footy, and then Mum would take me to netball. Mum was heavily involved, so she played umpired coach pretty much since I was born.
Nice.
My dad would come watch me play netball, but he'd bring the hot chips with my brother after footy. And Mum's like, no, you got to play. You're not allowed to eat hot chips. So, massive sporty family, and they're very involved still now.
Do you remember playing netball as a child thinking, this is something I can do for a job?
Never.
Yeah.
I remember Mum was like involved in our club, and she's like, oh, we'll sign you up when I was 6 or whatever. I was like, no, I'm not playing, like really shy. And then my best friend decided to play, so I was like, oh, I'll play. She's playing, so I joined with her, and just loved playing with her and stuff. But never thought, like, I guess women and netball wasn't on the TV as much. It wasn't really in your face all the time on social media and that. So I never thought it was like a career. I just thought it was just something you do for fun on a Saturday.
So did you have sporting idols growing up? Like who were they?
Realistically, it wasn't probably till later in my career that I probably had like a netballer, which was Nat Von Berta, who was the Australian captain at the time when I was growing up. But it was more like Roger Federer. I just loved watching him play tennis, early mornings or late nights whenever the tournaments were on. But I feel like the women probably weren't as in your face unless I went to like a netball clinic, and even then I was too shy or too embarrassed to go up to them and say hi. So Liz Ellis obviously was the one in Sydney who was just well known. But I don't think women was as much in your face when I was growing up, and I didn't think it was going to be a career. It was like a hobby. It wasn't a career or a job.
So at what point do you go, I can do this for a living?
It probably wasn't until to be honest, like my first state team when I was like 17, 18. And then I saw the pathway of you go from here. I moved down to the AIS to live, and then the Swifts for an opportunity. But even then, all the girls worked part-time or full-time. We used to train outside of hours. So it wasn't until the last probably 5 or 6 years that actually a lot of girls can actually live off this and not have to have full-time jobs as well.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up out west in Penrith. I'm a Westie, so massive sporting area, like rugby league, like the Panthers obviously are from out there, but yeah, massive rugby league, massive netball fan. Like they got over like 40 courts out there. Like Saturday was just, it was a festival. Like there was this netball going on, soccer over the road, footy going on. So yeah, massive sporting area.
Swifts was your team growing up, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Swifts were, they had you had the Sandpipers and Hunter Jagers come in, but the Swifts were.
The what? The what?
Hunter Jagers, they were
What's
one
a
of
Hunter
them.
Jager?
Yeah, the Hunter Jagers, they were based out in like near Newcastle.
Great. Hunters are players.
Yeah,
Oh,
Hunter,
so
yeah.
the Jagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, surely not Hunter Valley, that's where all the wine.
Right.
Yeah, we go for a drink the wine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Swifts they were the ultimate. Like they had the heroes, they were successful. And yeah, they wore that iconic yellow dress that we all watched.
That's unreal. So what's it like going for the Swifts, and then you've been a one club player your whole career? Like you're effectively a fan that's just come in and now you've
got to hang around.
Yeah, and you're now captaining the club. So that's a pretty cool journey. Not many people get to do that.
Yeah, I remember there was one game like my local club won like a chance to go and play on the court before the Yellow Swifts, and Mum's got photos, we're all there with our participation, like, little certificates. And to look back now and think that that's young kids that are playing in front of, like, before our games or at halftime and stuff, like, never would have thought that would even be, like, I remember Mum used to say, like, at reps, oh, you're not playing for Australia, like, get over it. And then now she's like, oh, God, you are playing for Australia. like, it just used to be something I just loved. Like, it was an outlet from, life and school and all of that, and I just love the sport. But yeah, never thought it would be actually a job.
What growing up personality wise do you think, and things that you learnt from your parents or your siblings that's made you a successful athlete? Like, is it competitiveness? Is it the drive, commitment, all that stuff? What do you think, like, growing up you learnt that made you the athlete you are? Yeah,
I think, to be honest, I don't think I've ever been the most skilled or the most talented, but my parents, working class, moved out west to be able to afford to live, provide for me and my brother, be able to have opportunities to play sport or go on holidays, all those sort of things. And it was just that hard work and that commitment. And I think I always say that I think one of the things that have got me so far is my training ability to be able to be in an environment and just be like a sponge and just want to work and learn and constantly be able to get better. And I think that's something that's put me in good stead for the longevity of my career. And I think, coaches being able to see that I want to learn and I'm coachable. And, but yeah, it's definitely that hard work. I think I've definitely never been like the most talented or had all the skills or the height or anything in netball, but it's been my hard work. And I think every session, every season, I want to get better. And I think that's what's motivated me to be, with the Swiss for 12 or 13 years now.
You got the big feet. Don't undersell.
Well, I never used to be, it's actually so funny because everyone's like, oh, you're so fast. And I was like, I remember when I first got into in-Swiss program, which was like kind of like the program where you'd go from state teams and they picked like kind of underage nationals teams. And I could not run. The guy's like, how are you a mid-quarter? And I was like, well, it's probably because of my height. Like everyone else is like, 6 foot something. And he's like, but you can't run. I was like, I think it's my feet. Like they slow me down. And then I'm like, I'm good in the pool, but not on land. And so all this year, it was literally just teaching me how to like run over these little hurdles, so like speed work. And that wasn't until I was 17. And because I was more of like a wing defence centre. And then they moved me when I learned how to run into a wing attack because I actually had to have like, quick feet and move. So it's actually really funny because I never was quick when I was younger. I was kind of like just like a plotter, just, breathe the belt. That's why I like centre because you just plod around. But then when I went to wing attack, it's like, no, you need to be like fast. And he's like, you need to learn how to run. And then, it wasn't until then. I remember I used to cry at some sessions because everyone else was doing fun things. It's like, no, Paige, on the hurdles, over the hurdles, over the hurdles. And I'm like, well, it worked out in the end, didn't it?
Just imagine you like flipper feet. Like,
do they come in handy now for it? Like now that you've learnt to use them, is it like an advantage?
Oh yeah, well I think one of my biggest strengths now is like what we say is my change of direction. And one of my teammates, Romelda, who's come this year, she's like, oh, you just break ankles, when you change direction that quick, people go and you're going this way. So it actually helped in the long run.
So you're talking about the positions there on a netball court. I've always quite intrigued with different sports, who's who on the field, and I don't mean like who's good, who's bad. I mean like the characters, like who we did some stuff with the Fever a few weeks back, and like who are the grumpy ones? Who are the happy-go-lucky? Like I'll just do my thing. Who are the you don't have to call them out, but like who are the who are the money
big
girls?
Dogs.
Yeah, who are the big dogs? Who are the so like who are the grumpy angry ones? Like who are the ones that just not complain to the umpires, but the the ones that, something doesn't go their way and they get angry.
That's probably the win defence because they never get the accolades. They always do the hard work, and then nothing ever goes their way. They're always out of play.
Yeah.
So that'll be the win defence, and then the shooters are it's all about me.
Dogs.
The big dogs get the money because they've got to shoot the super shots and get the goals in. But they're the ones like, oh, what? Poor me, like they've got contacted, like can't touch me, like
forwards. Forwards.
Yeah.
That's
they're the
like,
princesses.
Yes, and that's sport wide, like footy, basketball. Doesn't matter what you do. They're the forwards.
Yeah.
What about the defenders? Like, what are they?
Well, it's interesting because I always think the defenders are like the mongrels, like they're just get in there, get the job done. But then our defenders are quite like, meh. Meh. And I'm like, come on, like bit of mongrel there, like but they're very like
Clearly
meh.
they get the job done.
Oh, get the job done, but it's like meh, whatever. I'm out to play 20 times, meh. Like, but I would say they're the more mongrels at the back end.
And where do you sit? I mean, where?
Well, I think the mid-quarters are just the workhorses that, we never really get the accolades. You've got to shut down the ones out in front so the defenders get the intercepts, and then you've got to deliver all the balls so everyone remembers that super shot that, Helen Housley and our team get. So we're just to kind of fly under the radar and just do your job and get the job done.
It's a good analysis of the position standing. We spoke to Nat Medhurst, I mentioned it just before, and she spoke about, look, it certainly wasn't a poor me, but she spoke about, struggles starting off in the league. She was getting paid $1,000 a season to play when she started playing. Now, I know the game's come a long way since Nat started, but when you started in the game as a 18, 19, 20-year-old, what was that like from a financial point of view? Did you have to hold another job somewhere else? When full-time professional, how many girls are like that now? Like, where's it sitting in that aspect?
Yeah, so when I first got picked up, I think my first contract was $11,500.
Wow.
And personally, I thought it was the best thing ever. Like, it's my part-time job. I lived at home, so, paid nothing.
Great.
I was at university at the time, so I was at full-time university and netball. And I thought, oh, God, this is the best part-time job. I used to work at Video Easy. And I'm like, Video Easy or playing netball, I'll pick.
Shout out Video Easy.
Rest in peace.
I'll pick netball. But, now obviously I think the rookie wage is still only $45,000. So it's hard. A lot of girls have to move into state for opportunities.
Yeah.
And how do you, especially moving to Sydney on $40,000, it's hard. Most of it just goes to rent. So I feel like it's come a long way. And I always describe it as I feel like the top players probably can live off it and make a good money, but it's not setting you up for like years after sport, if that makes sense. So I feel like netball is still in that position where once you retire, you got to get a job straight away. It's not like you can set yourself up in the last few years what you want to do and have a few years off. It's like, no, like it's all right money now and you can set yourself up, but like for future years, you're still going to have to go straight away and get a job and have the income. So it's come a long way, but there's still a long way. And I think there's discrepancy between, if you're getting paid $45,000 or you're getting paid $120, but yet you're still required to do all the hours, same hours. And a lot of the girls can't hold full-time jobs or anything because if we train, from 7 to 1 some days. So it's about having that flexibility. But the Players Association has tried to put in like block out hours so people can obviously have jobs and stuff throughout the week. But it's come a long way, but there's still like so much more to go.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting from the outside looking in to see that there's certainly been a improvement from what I can see, but it's interesting to hear your thoughts. So let's take it back to the start then. You like I said before, you're a one club player with the Swifts. What's it like signing with the Swifts for the first time? Do you remember getting that contract, playing that first game?
Yeah, well, so my first game, I was living at the AIS and there had been injury, and so I lived with like 15 other girls that were similar age trying to break into the ANZ at the time. And I've got this missed call off Lisa Behag, who was the coach, and I was like, oh, why is she calling me? And ring her back, and I'm like, peering out of that because we lived in a dorm, so there was like 6 in the room, so I'm trying to get out of the room, so everyone didn't hear my conversation. And she's like, oh, we've had an injury this week. We'd like you to fly to Adelaide on the weekend and meet us there and suit up this week. And obviously in netball, like, you don't really, like, there's a starting 7 usually, and, you could go a whole year and not play, like, because the netball was traditionally like a starting 7 and 1 or 2 may get on. It's a bit different now with rolling subs because obviously people can just roll on where you used to have to call timeout, injury or whatever. So I thought, I'll just go and, I'll just be on the bench. Like, this is so cool, like, whatever. Yeah, so I fly to Adelaide and then I think we're getting beat by like 20-odd goals. And she's like, oh, Paige, you're going to go on. And I was going up against Shani Layton, who was like one of the best defenders in the league. and one of the loudest defenders in the league. And I was like, oh God. I don't remember the debut at all. I have no idea what I did. Whatever. I just remember I was like, holy shit. I'm next to Shani Layton. Like, this is ridiculous. And like the height difference of us is like this. Like it's huge. And I'm going, oh God, I can't do this. Like what am I doing? But yeah, that was the start. So then on that season, I ended up playing like, I think 6 or 7 games just as a replacement player. So every time someone was injured, I would go from Canberra, fly down that weekend, come back. So it was pretty cool. And then obviously from there, then the next year they offered me that full-time contract. And
So what year was that?
2012.
2012. So
Yeah.
you get the full-time contract in 2012. You debut for Australia in 2013.
Yeah. So I got, yeah.
That's a decent effort.
Yeah, it was, I was like, oh, this is what happens. Like, so you get your contract and then you get called up to, and I remember the first year I played for the Swifts, I was playing more wing defence.
Yep.
And then I moved more to an attacking role. But yeah, I debuted against Malawi 2 games. They rested a few players that year, that series. So then I came in and debuted, and it was awesome. I was like, oh, so you get your contract, then you play for Australia, and then the following year obviously did my ACL. But in that first bit, I was like, God, this is what happens. You get your full contract, then you go straight on to play for Australia, and then it was unreal. Like I remember playing for Australia, and obviously we played Malawi, who I think were ranked 5th at the time. But I was playing with Nat and Aaron Bell and Kimmy Green and like Maddie Brown. Like, those just like the icons of the game. And I was this young kid that just thought, oh, this just happens. You get your contract and then you get to play for Australia with these guys.
I went to school with Maddie Brown. She was her mum was my sports teacher.
Oh, really?
Christine.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah. And Maddie was like, she used to just be better than all of us at sport. That's what I remember of Maddie.
When you're at the AIS and you get the call up, is there any sort of, like, if you're all living together and you're all trying to make it, is there any awkwardness when you get like the call up? You're like, because you want everyone to sort of succeed, but you're the one that gets the call.
Yeah, it was hard because at the time there was a few of us living from New South, and so Gabby Simpson and Kim Revalian, who they both ended up going to the Firebirds, so Queensland, but we'd grown up playing together kind of like all nationals and all state teams, and so then we moved down to the AS, and so we're all hoping to obviously get back to Swifts and be able to play for our home state. So it was hard because obviously when I got that call, and they were obviously happy for me, but I could feel like it was like, like happy, but also that they're waiting for their opportunity. And so that following year when I got the Swifts contract, when someone retired, they ended up signing with the Queensland Firebirds. And so Gabby hasn't been back since. She's been there ever since I've been at Swifts. She's been at Firebirds. So yeah, it is hard because obviously we all went down there for the same kind of goal to get the opportunity. And it was just literally just like positional of like, all right, we want this kind of position, and lease saw something in me, and I was the one that got it, but it could have been any of us that probably got that spot, and then it would have been different. I may have been the one that got into Firebirds, so you just don't know.
Playing for your country is pretty special, and not many people in any sport get to do that.
Oh, it's unreal. And I think my Diamonds journey has been like, I got in really young, and then I went to a World Cup, and then I got dropped, and then I was in, and then I was out, and then I've been on tours, and it's been a roller coaster. And I feel like my Diamonds journey probably didn't really kick off until the last kind of year and a half when a new coach came in and I guess sees something different in you. And I thought when I debuted so young, I was like, oh my God, like, you could play every game for Australia here. And then I got injured and then got dropped from the team for a while. And then I've been on tours and never played, or I remember they used to take 13 on the tour, but 12 would suit up. And so if you get a text message, you're not suiting up that day. And I'll be like, Paige, can you please come to my room? I'm like, oh no.
The 13th.
So you walk in and she's like, so, you know why you're here? Yep, I know why I'm here. But yeah, obviously I think it makes it all the worthwhile when you do get the opportunity to play. Because even though I've been in their system since 2013 for Australia, I haven't played that many games because I've been kind of in and out. So every time I do get the opportunity, it's just unreal.
So let's talk about that ACL. So you think, right, I just come in, I get my contract with the professional team, play for the country, it's just going to be, how it goes. And as a young person, you do that, right?
Yeah.
You think, well, you don't know any better.
Invincible.
So what's that moment like when you injure your knee severely, ACL?
Yeah, I remember it was like a Thursday. We'd done all pre-season. We'd played one game against the Fever, and then we were training that week leading into the second game, and I just went for a ball like on the circle edge and I tried to stay like onside. Literally just landed, boom, boom, felt it, like straight away screamed. I felt the pop. And everyone, like, you watch the video and everyone's like, because everyone just knows in netball that's what happens. And I guess I didn't realise the magnitude of what I was about to go through because I feel like I was only 20. So I think I was 19 or 20. And so no one I really knew had kind of gone through that. I'd seen it like on social media, or you'd seen players that had done it, because in netball, unfortunately, it's like a common injury. But I'd never actually known really someone that had like kind of gone through that, and so I just didn't know what to expect. And as you said, like I was on this highest of highs, like all this stuff had happened. I'd debuted, I played 2 games for Australia, I'd won MVP my second game, and I got back in the squad, and it was going to be a Commonwealth Games year in 2014, and I was like, oh, this is like awesome, like, and that happens, and I just didn't know, and all I knew was going to training every day and playing every week, and then it was like, all right, well, you're in bed and you're bedridden and you can't drive, and I was still living at home, so relying on the parents to drive me to physio, and at that time our physio wasn't even full time, so I was having to go to her clinic. I couldn't go to the club. Right. It was like you go to her clinic. So then I'd get dropped off, have to stay there for 5 hours with mum, had to go to work. So I'd be doing rehab, but then I'd just be sitting out the front like waiting to get picked up to drive home, because we didn't have a full-time physio where you just sit at the club and do all that rehab. Wow. So I was doing rehab at home, then going to the clinic to see her, but then also when she was at training, then I was going to training to be around everyone. So yeah, it was a tough injury. There's no doubt about it. And I don't think you quite know what it's like until you actually go through it. And everyone deals with it differently. I think for me, I kind of had to take a little step back from being so involved in everything, because I just felt like it was like FOMO. Like it was like, I want to do that, but I actually can't. And there was some absolute highs of rehab, and then there's days where it's just like your darkest days and you just can't see the end. And but I had 2 guys at S&Cs at InSwiss at the time. So Swiss were linked to InSwiss at the time. And they were just unreal. Like they were at every rehab session. That they were at the pool with me when I was, back in the pool. They were swimming next to me, like trying to race me, because obviously the girls were still going through their season. So they were focusing on that. So I was also doing things at different times. So yeah, it was a hard injury, but I think it makes you realise how bad you want it. And I think that I was very fortunate to have a 2-year contract at the time. So that was my first year in the contract. So I had that year to try and come back. Otherwise, I don't know what it would have been like. Would I have got another contract? Would I not? But yeah, tough injury, but I think it made me realise how badly I want to play at this level.
Would you have, did you feel like you missed out? Like the Commonwealth Games was that next year, and you were in that team. Like, were you watching on, like you said, FOMO, but were you watching on feeling like you were missing out?
A little bit, but I think watching, like, say, the 2018 Com Games when I missed out as well, that was harder, because it was like I wasn't injured. Where 2014, I was like, well, like I literally, like I was sitting there in the lounge going, well, I actually can't play netball. Yep. So whilst I was like, oh, that could have been me, or that I could have won that gold medal with them, it was like, well, I actually can't. But then 2018, watching and not being selected, it was even harder, because you're like, oh, like, and obviously England won that Com Games, and I had a teammate in Helen Housby. She shot the winning goal to beat Australia in the gold medal match, and she then came back to our team and was like, obviously like stoked. And
you were living with her?
No, she was in our team, and so she came back and she was just stoked, and obviously she just made history for England, because they've never won a medal, like gold medal, and yeah, that was hard, because like she'd been on the highest of highs, and all I wanted to do was be there. But I felt like, you feel like you're missing out. But I think because I was injured, I was like, well, I actually can't be there right now. So it was a little bit easy to watch. What
did you learn, being injured and then coming back and then, finding form again? What did you learn?
Yeah, I think it took me a while to find form. I think obviously I feel like I was confident in my rehab, and I feel like they were constantly holding me back. But I think the biggest lessons for me were just like being able to be diligent, and, rehab was just ruthless, and I didn't want to cut any corners or, take the easy run. When I would come back, I wanted to know that I'd done everything right. So when I was able to take that court, I had because I had, everyone says to me, oh, were you nervous? And I was like, well, not really, because I'd done everything and they held me back so much. And I was like, just let me go, just let me go. And I think, it was always about, for us, it's not about the short term, it's about the long term. We don't want to get you back in 9 months and then, you're back here in 2 years. It was about, we want you back, and we want you back for good. So for me, it was about, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making sure that my preparation was good. And I think that's something I've taken into as I've got older. I always laugh at the young ones. I feel like you used to be able to go out on a Saturday, Sunday, and then back up Monday. But now I'm like, you won't see me out at all.
Oh yeah, don't worry, it's absolutely true.
How do you mentally, like you said, it's such a common injury. It's like, it's probably the most common injury, right? In netball, ACLs especially. Mentally, do you just have to put it to the back of your mind and go, I'm not going to think about it at all? Because it's such a common, like you're moving and stopping and turning so much.
Yeah, it's something that I guess when you're out there playing, like you don't even think about it. The only time I really think about it is when you have like kind of that awkward land, or like, you know, you get hit and everyone goes, and you're like, oh God, like, you know, and there was one a couple of weeks ago where I landed funny and I kind of got knocked as I landed, and everyone's like, and I was like, oh, and then there was kind of that moment of like, oh, like, that could have been it. But otherwise, when you're out there, like, you're so focused on what you got to do, and I feel like netball is such a fast sport, so you don't have time really to think about anything else but being in the moment. So yeah, obviously, it's one of those things that happens, but it's something that's not in the front of your mind at all. That
Diamonds journey that you spoke about, like, it sounds like you've had ups and downs. Like, what are reflections on that? What are the downs? What are the ups? Like, what are your favourite memories? Because down can be favourite. You can learn from it.
The ups, I can't go past the 2015 World Cup. I think I had just done my ACL, obviously came back. It was rehabbing 2014. First kind of games back were in 2015. And then we went all the way to, so the Diamond squad usually gets picked early in the season, but the team gets picked later. And so I didn't get picked in the squad. Obviously, after coming back from ACL, I'd only played 6 games, so I didn't get picked in that. But then we made the grand final. We lost the grand final. But that day they said, oh, check your emails. And so I checked my emails the night up. Like, we just lost by 1. You're obviously devastated. And then I checked my email and it's like, hey, you've been elevated to the Diamond squad. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And the next day I get a phone call saying, oh, you're going to the World Cup in 2015. Wow. And it was like unreal. It was in Sydney. Like, so Sydney girl, had all my family and friends there. Like, just came back from an ACL. Like, it was just... And then we beat New Zealand by 3. Like, I was just like, oh, this is, I said, this just happens. Like, and I think from there, it was just like a bumpy road. I think, obviously at the end of every cycle, so every 4 years, you kind of have Com Games and World Cup, and then they kind of like bring in new people, they refresh things, they obviously try new things. And I just struggled, like I was kind of in the squad, but then I wasn't getting game time. And then I got dropped. So in 2017, the Suncorp Super Netball came in, and a lot of the people left Swifts, so then we had a really young Swifts team, which is the one we're with now, but we weren't winning games. So then I guess when you're not winning games, your form kind of goes down, and so then I got dropped from the Australian squad altogether, and then I got back in, and then I got out again, and then obviously we won the premiership in 2019 with the Swifts, and then I went to a World Cup. And so in 2019 you played 8 games, and then had a World Cup break, and then you came back and finished the season. And so we had lost the World Cup by 1 goal to New Zealand. Yes. And we were at the after party thing, and the commercial guy said to me, oh, like, you know, what's wrong? I was like, oh, I'm going home to win the premiership. I was like, that just infuriated me, like losing that by 1. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I was like, no, I'm going home. I'm going to win the premiership. Like, we haven't won it in 11 years. I've never won a premiership. Anyway, then we went on to win it. And I saw him out after the grand final. And I was like, I told you. And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I was like, I told you. Like, I just knew that moment that we lost that. I was like, nah, like this year is like, we've got to get it, and to come home from that and then go out and win the final was just unreal. But yeah, I guess the highest things were Com Games 2022 for Diamonds and 2015. But I guess one thing that was a low point in Diamonds was obviously the Commonwealth Games. I did my calf just before it. So I literally 2022.
Did you?
So I literally was flying, and I felt like the new coach had come in, Stacey Marinkovic had come in early, and about 20, I think she came in 2020. And I didn't really play early in her under her, but then I got an opportunity in it. I think it was 2021 quad series, and then 2022 quad series, and played well, and then kind of got that form in under her, and then I got picked to go to the Commonwealth Games, and I felt like, oh yeah, this is my moment. Like, I'm firing. Like,
you're back.
I'm back. Like, she believes in me. Like, she gave me the opportunity. Like, yeah. And then I was playing really well, and then we had our last practice game before we were going to the village, and I was like, oh, my calf just like, I didn't feel anything go. I just felt like it felt tight. So I just came off and said to the physio, it feels tight. She's like, oh, we'll get it scanned or whatever. Anyway, that was like the hardest time because we had 3 reserves. So you had till like the Wednesday to say if Paige was in or out. And this is like Monday. And so like, oh, we need to get scanned, we get checked, because we also need to make a call if you're going to go to the Commonwealth Games or if you're going to be ruled out. And I was like, oh, like, so it was just, and so you go into the village and everyone's running around berserk, you know, got the new bag, got this, did you see this? We're like, Paige, you know, you're going to get a scan. So I missed out on all of that hurrah because they sent me off to a scan anyway. They said, oh, you've got kind of like a, you know, a bit of a strain, but like it's nothing really, like, you know, you should be good, but you could not be good because you're playing 7 games in 10 days. So like, you may not be okay. I was like, oh, I guess it's your call, like, you know. And so they gave me every second to try and get there. And it was so hard because, you know, like Jamie Lee was the reserve, and so she's obviously sitting there going, you know, like I could actually be going into a Commonwealth Games, and then I'm sitting there going, oh, I could be pulled out here at the last second. And I was doing all these tests and it was getting better, and they were like, okay, we're going to give you a crack. And I was like, thank you. Like, I just didn't know which way they're going to go. And anyway, so Stacey said, no, we believe that you're going in the right direction and stuff. So I missed the first game, and then I was on monitored load. So I played the second game and felt really good. And then in that third game, felt really great. The second quarter, felt really great. And it was about a few minutes to go, and I felt like someone had kicked me in the leg. And I was like,
that's the calf.
That's the calf.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then I turned around, like, you know, who kicked me? And then I was like, nah. Anyway, so I obviously hobbled off. And then I just knew that was going to be it. And we had spoken about that. That's the risk if I go out and play, that it could go. But I was willing to risk that to try and, you know, get through that tournament and try and be a part of it. And so whilst I was on this amazing journey of Com Games, I was also like fighting these obviously personal, like, how can I, like, I'm here, like, why did this happen? Like, why me? Like, playing really well, and then this calf, and I never really had calf issues. I never had calf issues, and it literally just went bing, like. And I remember going to the change room at half time and going into the back room, and obviously the girls were talking, and physio's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, no, I'm going out there. Like, no, it's fine. Like, we're going out there. So I went out there and supported her, and she obviously knew, like, the physio was crying. She knew that obviously that was me done, and, you know, she'd obviously been trying to get me back and stuff. And, it was really tough, but it was such a weird thing because all I wanted to do was, I think for me, I went into, okay, well, they cannot lose this gold medal because I would feel like it was my fault because I've just gone and got injured. They've risked putting me in there, and then they've gone and played 7 or 8 games, more load without me being there because at the time you can't swap people once this tournament starts. So that's it. Like, they were playing. They're carrying without me. And I was like, oh, we cannot lose this because otherwise they would be like, oh, it's because they took Paige Hadley and she was injured and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I can't live with that. And so I was like, nah. I went to my room, had about half an hour of like sobbing to myself, and I was like, nah, that's it. And then so the other mid-quarters, all I was doing was like watching PA on like Jamaica and England and like giving like pointers. And on the bench I was just like so loud because all I could do was give my energy to there. I didn't have to worry about warming up or being ready just in case I was going on. I could just waste my energy on like being in the moment and stuff. And I was just like, whilst I was devastated personally, I didn't get to be out there playing in that whole tournament, and especially the gold medal match. But to be a massive part of it, and, you know, to have like Stacey, the coach, after go like, I don't think we would have won that if it wasn't for you and how you put yourself, you know, put your issues aside and was there for the team. And I think the other middies could just play with freedom because I think, I don't know if you ever felt like you know, when you're under the pressure of like performing and is someone going to take your spot, like who's going to have the bib, like where they didn't have to worry about that. I was just there supporting them and stuff, and to win that gold medal was just the best feeling ever. And I think whilst I would have loved obviously the fairy tale to me to be on that court and be playing it, I think it was just the most surreal thing to be a part of it, and obviously going through that journey. And so whilst it was like the down, it was also the highest of highs.
It sounds like a full circle kind of thing, right? If you talk about your big injury to ACL when you're a young player, and just hearing you speak about it, it was about you and getting your knee right and getting back out there and getting taken by your parents to physio. You do your calf, and it's not as serious an ACL, but it sounds like maturity-wise, you're able to switch pretty quickly into not being about you. Yeah. And even though you were worried about the impact you'd have not being out there, the full circle moment is like the ability to go, right, it's not about me almost. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was that point of like, I had that moment of like crying because, you know, I guess it's something you dream of as a kid to go to Com Games. And
it's selfish to a point, right? Like
you're like, that's what I dreamed of. And you're like this close to it, and it gets ripped from underneath you. But then I was like, nah, like I cannot have this team win silver and be like, oh, it's because they carried an injury player. Like the players were under fatigue. They were too loaded. You know, the mid-quarters looked fatigued. They were tired. I was like, nah, like we have to win this. I was like doing everything I could to like, you know, make sure they were ready to go. They were in form. They had their strategies down. They were pumped. And so I just being able to watch that gold medal match and see them just like go, because we obviously lost to Jamaica in the rounds and then played them again in the grand final, and to see them just like push on and push on, I was just like just stoked. And I remember I tried to run on the court at the end because they strapped my calf up because they were like, just in case you got to run on after the end. And I went to run. I was like, I can't run. So I'm like hobbling. One girl's like carrying me. I was like, oh God. I was like, I thought it was going to be like the fairy tale moment when I get to run onto the pack. But I was like, I cannot run here. And I got one girl under me like pulling me along. I was like, oh God, it wasn't as pretty as what I thought it was going to be in my head.
Does the entire squad get medals? Like, do you all get awarded a medal?
Yeah, so the 12 that are there and then the coaches. But like if we had swapped out, probably wouldn't have. Like it was only the 12 that were there and then the coaching stuff.
So you've got your medal?
Yeah, got
I know you didn't get to play in the game, but I feel like that's...
Oh,
I mean...
huge.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, I would hands down, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't have wanted to be fit and ready to playing. But what I got from that, and I feel like the satisfaction that I got from even like... so Kate was the other midcourt that was playing in that game, and she said to me like she had a joke that I was, thanks coach, like I wouldn't have got through if it wasn't for you helping me with that. Like the satisfaction that I got from people saying, what you gave to that team, how selfless you were, like was huge for me. It was like, that's the ultimate thing about team sport is it's not always about you. It's about taking sometimes you away from that and what you can give. And I think, I would be lying if I said it didn't give me a huge satisfaction to know, even like the coach came up to me and go, I don't think we would have won that if it wasn't for what you did and, the energy you gave. And it was like I wasn't even injured because every meeting I was involved and stuff. So where I feel like you could have gone one or two ways, you could be like, oh, I don't want to beat you. Like this sucks, like where I was like, no, like I don't want to look back and go, oh, what if, or we could have won gold. Like you only get once every 4 years to get the opportunity to do that.
It's almost like a better experience. I don't know. People don't like sit you down and say that as a player because they're like, well, that's what you're meant to be doing. I don't know. You defended well, you attacked well. Thanks. Like, here's your medal. Yeah. But if you're actually able to do something that you're not almost like not expected to do, it's almost like, I don't know if you can say it's better, but it's certainly like unique, right? Like,
and I think as a leader, it helped me because I feel like as a leader, I always think I'm like, what I do on the court, how I train, like, the intensity I bring and stuff, where it was able to lead in a different way and, give that kind of energy and voice and in a different aspect where it wasn't always just what happens on the court, it's what you're doing off the court as well. So
talking about leadership, you're the current co-captain of the Swifts with Maddie Proud, and you guys are playing in finals this year. You finished minor premiers on top of the ladder. You've been a two-time, did you call them premiership? You're a two-time premiership? You're a three-time premiership player? Two-time. Two-time. Hopefully 3 times. 2019, 2021, two flags. And I've got to say a big shout out to Kayo Sports. Yes. If you are interested and loved hearing Paige speak about what she's doing, you can watch every game of finals. Suncorp Super Netball Finals live and free. Kayo Freebies. You don't need a credit card. You don't give anyone cash. It's free. You sign up. Takes a minute. You just need an email. So you can go to kayosports.com.au/freebies. So you guys are free to air. We can watch you go about your business. What's it like coming into this final series as the captain of the team? Yeah, well, we've had this joke that, we like the odd years. So we won 2019, won 2021. So it's 2023. Like it. But yeah, I think started off the season really, really patchy. We had a loss, a draw because the power went out in one of our games in Adelaide. And you lost? A draw. So we had lost. And then, at half time. I thought they just said, no, you lose. Bella. Yeah, well, half time the power went out, and so it was a draw actually on the scoreboard. But because if you get over half a game, so if you get in the third quarter, the score stands. But it was half time. They couldn't get it back on? In Adelaide, the whole stadium went out. Wow. So they called the game a draw. Mid-game? Was it mid-game. Was it like mid-pass? No, so what had happened actually is do you know what decals are on the floor? Yeah, like the sponsors things, right? Yeah, so they were too sticky. So you have to have the texture of the court, like obviously because we're like stopping and starting all the time, it needs to be like the same. Yes. Where they were too sticky. So they were saying obviously that was an injury risk in terms of like, going from this surface to that surface. Yeah. So they had to delay the game to pull them all up. I was going to say, how do you unstick the decals? Yeah, they took them off. Pull them all up, right? So they delayed the game by like 45 minutes. So we're already like, all right, here we go. So delayed the game. Then we go out and start playing the game. Go into the change room, half time. We're in the change room and the coach's like, stay in here. We're like, why? She's like, oh, you just got to stay in here. And we're like, well, it's time to go out. And she's like, oh, the lights have gone out. And we're like, what? Like we thought it was an actual joke. And we're like, Adelaide just don't want to play us. Like, and it's really fitting because we're actually playing Adelaide this weekend. Yes. In Sydney though. But yeah, so started off the season really, really patchy for us. Like we had a loss, a draw,
had a small margin win, then a massive loss to Fever, to West Coast.
Yep.
And then it was kind of like, gosh, like, you know, and we had very similar team, but we had got a new shooter in. So we lost Sammy Wallace last year to an ACL injury, which is our marquee shooter. So we moved to more of a moving circle. And then this year we've got Romelda Aiken-George, who's a Jamaican, who's just come back from having a little girl, Gianna. So it was taking us a while to kind of click in that attack end. But then from round 5, I think we had about 5 or 6 games that we won by 1 or 2 goals. And everyone was like, oh, Swifts are just scraping through. But literally it was like we just found a way. Like it was the hardest of games, but we just found a way. Like against West Coast, we're over in Perth. It's always hard to win over in Perth. RAC, and they're up by 1, 40 seconds to go. And then Matty Turner just comes out and like swipes his ball and like we get the pick up, go to goal, score, draw, our centre pass, literally 3 seconds to go, throw it in, Romelda shoots. Like, it was just literally like every game. But
so thank you for that. We had a scheduled sit down with the Fever that week, and I rang and said, look, I know how it goes in sporting clubs when you lose like that. We're not coming in because I know what the team meeting's going to be like. So thanks for that. We pushed us back a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I think the season in whole obviously like built every week. Like the few in there we were winning by 1 or 2 goals. The last few kind of could break it out to 8 or more. I guess we had wrapped up that kind of minor premiership. So last week's game, disappointing from our end in terms of the way we played. But we get another crack at Adelaide, and I think we're pumped. I think no one thought we would be in this position except us. I think this group has the utter belief. I think the core of us, there's 6 of us that have been together since 2017. And yeah, pumped to go into finals. I think, especially coming off last week, playing Adelaide again. We're going to be able to play him here. But yeah, I think it's going to be an absolute fantastic final series. That this season's been the closest it's been ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously excited. I think last week's loss, I think, was a bit of a kick up the bum, to be honest, to get us into gear. I think sometimes when you're on that winning streak, you never know what that feeling of losing is, and that just finding that little edge. And so this week's been really good in terms of PA for us, in terms of what we're doing on court, in terms of our structures, because they've got one of the best defensive leagues in the competition. So they're back to in terms of stats. So yeah, it's about finding ways around that. But yeah, really excited for what's ahead for the final series.
That's cool. The captaincy, how have you found that?
Yeah, I think for us, like me and Maddie, it's amazing because I think we're so different in terms of who we are as people, but also leaders. And I think it's something that we've both just naturally fallen into. I think for me, as I spoke about, it's about that passion. It's about the intensity. It's about the workload. It's about, for me, preparation is key for me. So people probably hate me in PA, but I like to have, because I obviously play wing attack as well. So wing attack's role is to kind of set the structures of the whole attack end. So I like being really settled in terms of going to the game, so I know I can just play with freedom. So I like knowing exactly like A, B, C, where other players just like going in and having a feel, where for me it's about having that structure. And a lot of players say, oh, you don't get the accolades. But I was like, but if my attack end's firing, I know what the structures I'm putting in place are doing well. So yeah, I think for me and Maddie, we're different people, but we bring different things. And to be able to play together, obviously in that centre wing attack role, it's awesome. I think our relationships has grown, and our relationship on court is just like in sync now. We don't even have to speak really. We just know kind of where we're going to be. But yeah, I think as a leader, obviously you want to be out there, you want to be doing your own personal performance, but you also want to bring the team along with you. And for me, if I can see people firing, I know I'm doing the right thing.
Do you get itchy to shoot, like, because you're creating so much, but like you say, you don't really get the accolades. Like in every other sport, anyone can score at any time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you're held back from it.
Yeah, never get the urge.
Really?
At training, we'll try and have
launch one.
We'll have a shooting game or whatever. I'm like, nah, you guys have to do it. I think shooters, whilst they do get all the accolades, I think the amount of work they do, or especially in our team, they're always shooting after training, before training, and the pressure that's on them, every game, especially with the super shot coming in the outer arc, it's been able to open up games. And so yeah, whilst everyone likes to be a shooter and get, everyone remembers a winning goal or whatever, also the pressure they're under is immense. And I think our shooters did an amazing job this year.
Good luck in the final series, Paige.
Thank you.
I think we've come to the end of your journey. Well, not the end, but we're at a point in time.
This podcast
in
journey.
A point in time. We're looking forward to watching you in the finals. Good luck, and thanks for joining us on BackChat.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So we come towards the end of the podcast here. We're done. Bless you. Been holding that for the entire interview over there. Now we come towards the end, but we aren't finished yet. So you've heard enough from Dan and I. We'll get some questions from our audience. So not social media, social media. Yes, that's right.
Social media.
You see what we've done there? I think you have. It's amazing. Now, Dan, have you got these here in front of you?
Yeah.
So these are from some of our audience. Some questions for you. You ready?
Yeah.
This first one's from Keely, I think with 4 underscores. Are there any ever discussions amongst netball teams about how the progression in women's AFL or other male-dominated sports like rugby could be a positive for netball? Or do you think there are any negatives to the attention being taken off the most watched women's sport in Australia and distributed amongst others with the uprise of other codes? That's a long... There's a few things there.
There's absolutely discussion amongst, especially our team. Sometimes we joke about, gosh, we should go play cricket or soccer, but we're probably to do anything else. But no, there's definitely discussions, and I think there's both positives and negatives to both. I think obviously positive in terms of women's sport, like being put out on the map, being out there. I think netball's obviously been the number one women's sport for so long, but having AFL and NRL and all these sports codes coming in, I think is opportunity for women to be able to have a full-time career in these sports. But I guess for netball, we see it as, yes, it's positive, but also, it is a negative. We don't have the backing of a male-dominated sport to be able to, I guess, cross-code and have that support. So I think it's a challenge for netball to be able to, and you've probably seen in the media recently, there is challenges for netball to be able to, I guess, push that and, I guess, financially what position we're in. And, I think it's definitely something we discussed. And I think, as we spoke about, my first contract was 11,000, where women in NRL and that are getting way more than that for their first contracts. And I guess for us, we've been in a pathway since you were 7 to get to that point. So there's definitely positives and negatives. I think for women's sports, huge. I love being able to switch on the TV even tonight, be able, whenever this is going to be aired, but be able to watch the Origin for the women and I went to a live game and stuff and see that, that we are getting professional. But I guess for netball there is some challenges, and that's something the sport's going to have to address, because we don't have that male dominated sport to be able to collab with. But I think netball's got we're the third highest participation sport, so we've got the people there, playing it and involved in it. It's about how we, I guess, progress that to be able to be, in that professional league.
Rebecca Jones says...
You're running this, Matt.
Yeah, how much does voice play a part in netball on the court?
Oh, voice?
I think she means like, talk, voice.
Communication.
Like communication.
Oh, it's huge. I think the game is so fast, and communication is the biggest thing for us. And I think when I don't know, attacking every centre pass, you may not see it, but where either I'm making eye contact or talking or whatever, communicating about what the play is. There's no one play where you just go out there and you're running around not looking at your teammates. So voice is huge, and obviously defensively, that every structure, whether it's a diamond, a box, a one-on-one, there's all communication around what we're doing. So it's huge.
Last one from Smithy67. What would you tell young Paige Hadley with all of your experience that you have now?
Oh gosh,
good question.
That's a great question, Smithy. I think for me, it's don't compare yourself. I think going through our pathway, you kind of always wanted what someone else kind of had, or you felt like they had the easy journey or the easy path. But it was about embracing, I guess, where you are right now and where you're heading. And I think those times where I kind of got dropped out of the squad and stuff, it was kind of like, oh, I wish I was like her and she was in there and she's playing in this. But I was always on the path to where I was meant to be. And I think it's just like putting your head down, working hard and getting there. So it's not comparing yourself and just enjoying where you are in your journey and where you're going.
It's good.
That's it. You've done well, Paige.
I've survived.
We want you to get and prepare for these final series. Good luck against the Adelaide Thunderbirds. That's who you're playing, right?
Yeah.
Great. You looked at me like you were...
You did any research?
Yeah, correct. BackChat _. You can find us there. BackChat _studios. You can find all of our stuff at backchatstudios.com.au. You can send us an email, hello@backchatpodcast.com.au. A big thank you to all of our sponsors. Now, you've got some on your shirt, but we just need to go through some of these. Swimply, Whippersnapper Whisky, Margaret River Roasting Co., BlueBet, Shelter Brewing Co., Leaderville Cameras, And of course, Kayo Sports for making this all happen. Make sure you jump on to Kayo Sports Freebies, kayosports.com.au/freebies to watch the entire Suncorp Super Netball Finals free. Yes, free, Dan. Freebies, free. Understand?
Absolutely. You
Free.
don't even need, you know, you like sign up to something for 30
Free.
days and then you have to cancel it. You don't even do that.
Free. kayosports.com.au/freebies. Paige Hadley, good luck. Thanks for sharing your journey with us.
Thanks, guys.